All right, today we're in Genesis chapter 17, verses 15 and following. Here's what it says. God said to Abraham, "As for your wife Sarai, do not call her Sarai, for Sarah will be her name." Now, I studied that, looking to see if there was any major change of meaning, and really, there's not. What God is doing here is He's just exercising this thought that He has the ability to change our name. What goes with our name? Well, everything, our identity. This is how we're known. This is how we're identified in the world. This is how we're identified to other people. This is how we're identified to our loved ones. And what God is saying is, I'm changing her identity. She's still princess. She's still beloved. But I'm changing her. He goes on in verse 16 and says, I will bless her. Indeed, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she will produce nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. What I want you to see here is not only can God change our name and our identity, not only can He take us from what used to be and put His promise on us, changing us completely, but He is also gracious. She had failed. She had sinned. She had done wrong. She had not only led Abraham into sin, but had been horrible to her slave, treated her horribly, been miserable, and had blamed the whole thing on other people rather than taking responsibility for her own sin. And here we see God saying, "No, I'm going to change your identity. I'm going to make you different. I'm going to change who you are, and I'm going to do it in a very gracious way." You may need that today. He may be speaking to you directly. Abraham's response was this. Abraham fell face down. Then he laughed and said to himself, "Can a child be born to a 100-year-old man? Can Sarah, a 90-year-old woman, give birth?" The answer is obviously no. Our experience says that doesn't happen. That's a physical impossibility in our world. According to the resources we have and that we know, that doesn't happen. Doesn't add up. God is making clear that He is not dependent on our experiences. He's not dependent on what we know or the resources we have. Verse 18, so Abraham said to God, "If only Ishmael were acceptable to you." What's happening? Well, you'll know from yesterday's Devo that was what they were trying to do. They were working on their own plan. They were working on their own objective. And Abraham is going back to his other plans still. And then God in verse 19 really reiterates His plan. He says, "But God said, no. Your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac. I will confirm my covenant with him as a permanent covenant for his future offspring." God's saying, no, I have a plan, and I am who I am, and I do what I say I will do. As for Ishmael, this shows us God's compassion. He says to Abraham, "I have heard you. I will certainly bless you. I will make him fruitful and will multiply him greatly. He will father 12 tribal leaders, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will confirm my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year." We see several things in this particular story that God is who He says He is. He is not changing. At the same time, He can change us from the old us, Sarai, to the new us, Sarah. From the old us, those with pasts that we regret and have hurt, and made us into something new. 2, God is gracious. When we look, we may have situations that God has called us to, that everything in us thinks that can't happen based on our experience. And I want you to know God is not dependent on our experience. He is who He says He is, and He does what He says He'll do. He's not requiring our resources. He has them. So we, like Abraham, need to let go of our plans and trust Him to be who He says He is.